The warning sirens had been wailing for 3 hours now, and Ambassador Lyra could barely hear her own thoughts over the endless noise. She pressed her palm against the cool metal wall of the communications center and watched the holographic display show another red dot disappearing from the star map. That was Kelton 4, the mining world where 2 million Turvans had lived and worked just yesterday. Now it was nothing but a dead rock floating in space. How many does that make? She asked Tom, her aide who had not left his station in 6 days. His usually neat appearance had given way to wrinkled clothes and tired eyes that stared at screens filled with evacuation reports and distress signals. 17 worlds in the past month, Tom replied without looking up from his console. The Dominion bioships are moving faster than our projections suggested. At this rate, they will reach Terra Prime in less than 2 weeks. Lyra closed her eyes and tried to remember what peace felt like. The Turvan Republic had known nothing but harmony for over 3 centuries. Their 12 worlds had been centers of learning, medicine, and diplomacy. They had helped broker peace between warring species, developed cures for diseases that plagued entire star systems, and opened their libraries to any civilization that sought knowledge. The idea that someone would want to destroy them simply for existing had never entered their collective consciousness. The Dominion Empire changed everything. Supreme Commander Vorth led fleets of biomechanical ships that looked like massive insects crossed with warships. These creatures did not just destroy worlds, they consumed them, feeding on planetary cores until nothing remained but empty husks drifting in space. Every attempt at negotiation had been met with the same response: surrender and serve as slaves or face complete extinction. Any word from the Galactic Council? Lyra asked, though she already knew the answer. The Council had dissolved 3 months ago when the Dominion consumed the capital world of Nexus. The surviving representatives had fled to their home systems, more concerned with protecting their own people than mounting any unified resistance. Nothing, Tom confirmed. The Altarians have sealed their borders. The Centauri Federation is negotiating a non-aggression pact with the Dominion. Even the warrior clans of Vega have gone silent. Everyone is either dead, conquered, or hiding behind their own defenses. Lyra walked to the main viewing screen that showed the current positions of their evacuation fleet. Hundreds of ships carried the survivors from the outer worlds, packed beyond capacity with families who had lost everything. The medical ships were overwhelmed with refugees suffering from shock and radiation exposure. Food supplies were running dangerously low, and many of the smaller vessels were showing signs of engine failure from being pushed beyond their design limits. "What about our defense fleet?" she asked, knowing the answer would not bring comfort. Tom finally looked up from his console, and Lyra could see the defeat in his eyes. "Admiral Kane has 43 ships. Most of them are converted research vessels and medical transports with basic shields and outdated weapons. The Dominion advanced scouts alone number in the hundreds, and their main fleet has over 2,000 bioships." The mathematics were simple and brutal. The Turvans had spent their resources on hospitals, schools, and laboratories instead of weapons factories and military academies. Their greatest achievements were new surgical techniques and philosophical treaties on interspecies cooperation. Against an enemy that viewed compassion as weakness and mercy as foolishness, such accomplishments meant nothing. "There has to be someone," Lyra said, more to herself than to Tom. "Somewhere in this galaxy there must be a civilization that will stand against this madness." Tom activated a holographic display that showed the known galaxy. Most of the civilizations were marked in red, indicating they had been conquered or destroyed by the Dominion. Others showed yellow, meaning they had either surrendered or were negotiating terms. Only a handful remained green, and most of those were small, isolated worlds with no significant military capabilities. "I have been monitoring all known frequencies," Tom said. "Every species that could help us is either gone or too afraid to respond. The Dominion has made it clear that anyone who aids their enemies will be marked for total annihilation." Lyra studied the star chart and noticed something she had overlooked before. In one of the outer spiral arms far from the main shipping, Lanes and established civilizations was a small cluster of systems marked with question marks. The database showed minimal information, unexplored regions, possible habitable worlds, no confirmed intelligent life. What about these systems? She asked, pointing to the unknown region. Tom checked his records and shook his head. Those are beyond the explored regions. Most survey ships avoid that area because of strange energy readings and gravitational anomalies. If there is intelligent life there, they have never made contact with the galactic community. But they might exist, Lyra said, feeling the first spark of hope she had experienced in weeks. They might have technologies we have never seen or military capabilities that could stand against the Dominion. Even if such a civilization exists, Tom replied, why would they help us? They do not know us, have no treaties with us, and gain nothing from our survival. More likely, they would see our message as a threat and either ignore it or attack our remaining ships. Lyra looked at the evacuation fleet status again. 3 more ships had reported critical engine failures, and the medical vessels were sending increasingly desperate requests for supplies. In less than 48 hours, the Dominion scouts would reach the edge of their system, and shortly after that, the main fleet would arrive to finish what they had started. Send the message anyway, she decided. Include everything we know about Dominion tactics, ship designs, and weaknesses. Add our historical records, our medical databases, and our cultural archives. If we are going to die, at least someone in the universe will know we existed. Tom hesitated for a moment, then began typing commands into his console. What should I tell them about who we are? Tell them we are people who tried to make the galaxy a better place, Lyra said. Tell them we helped others whenever we could, and that we never sought to harm anyone. Tell them that if such a civilization as theirs exists, we hope they will. Remember us kindly. The message began transmitting toward the unknown systems, carrying with it the last hope of a dying people. Outside the communication center, the evacuation continued as millions of Turvans prepared for a future that might not exist. Ambassador Lyra stood at the viewing screen and watched the stars, wondering if anyone out there would hear their call, and if they did, whether they would care enough to answer. Dr. Hayes had been monitoring the deep space communication arrays when the impossible happened. The signal came from the same direction they had sent their desperate message 3 days earlier, originating from the mysterious systems beyond the explored galaxy. She nearly dismissed it as background radiation until the computer identified structured patterns within the transmission. Tom, you need to see this immediately, she called across the refugee command center. The former government building on Terra Prime had been converted into a coordination hub for the evacuation efforts, with every available room filled with communication equipment and exhausted. Officials trying to manage the crisis. Tom approached her station with the slow walk of someone who had not slept properly in over a week. His eyes were red from staring at screens, and he carried a cup of synthetic coffee that had long since gone cold. Please tell me it is good news, because I cannot handle any more disasters today. Someone answered our transmission, Dr. Hayes said, her voice barely above a whisper. The signal is definitely artificial, definitely intelligent, and definitely directed at us. Tom nearly dropped his coffee cup. What do you mean, someone answered? Are you certain it is not just an automated response or some kind of relay beacon? Dr. Hayes activated the main display screen and showed him the decoded message. The text appeared in perfect Turvan script, though the translation protocols indicated it had originally been sent in an unknown language. The message was brief but stunning in its implications. Turvan Republic Command, this is Admiral Ross of the Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress signal and tactical information regarding the Dominion Empire. Request immediate confirmation of current fleet positions, refugee locations, and estimated time until enemy arrival. We are preparing response force and require detailed planetary defense specifications. We'll monitor this frequency for your reply. Ross out. Tom stared at the message for a full minute before speaking. Earth Defense Fleet? I have never heard of any civilization called Earth. Are you certain this is genuine? I ran every verification protocol we have, Dr. Hayes replied. The signal originated from the same region we transmitted to. The power requirements for interstellar communication indicate significant technological capability, and the language translation suggests they have advanced computers capable of decoding our linguistic patterns in less than 3 days. But why would an unknown civilization respond so quickly? Tom asked. Most galactic governments require months of diplomatic negotiations before even acknowledging a first contact situation. This Admiral Ross is asking for tactical data and talking about response forces as if military intervention is already decided. Dr. Hayes pulled up additional data from her analysis of the transmission. There's something else that concerns me. The signal strength suggests it came from a single star system, but the power output indicates industrial capacity comparable to the old Galactic Federation. Either this Earth has technology far beyond anything we have seen, or they have military infrastructure that rivals entire galactic civilizations. Before Tom could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the command center. The tactical display activated automatically, showing new contacts at the edge of the turbine system. The Dominion scouts had arrived ahead of schedule, and long-range sensors were detecting massive energy signatures behind them. How many ships? Tom asked the tactical officer who was frantically working at his console. Initial count shows 47. Dominion scout vessels with main fleet signatures approximately 6 hours behind them, the officer reported. Bio-ship configurations match previous attack patterns. They are heading directly for our evacuation routes. Tom activated the communication array and began transmitting toward Earth. Admiral Ross, this is Tom of Turvan Republic Command. Dominion. Scouts have entered our system. Main fleet estimated arrival in 6 hours. Current refugee count is 4.7 million beings aboard 312 vessels. Our defense fleet consists of 43 ships, mostly converted civilian craft. We have no significant planetary defenses remaining. Please advise your intentions. The reply came within minutes, faster than should have been possible given the distance involved. Turvan Command, understand you are under immediate threat. Earth Defense Fleet is en route to your position. Estimate arrival in 4 hours. Maintain current evacuation procedures and keep refugee ships clear of engagement zones. Do not engage Dominion forces unless directly threatened. We will handle the situation. Ross out. Dr. Hayes looked at the chronometer and performed quick calculations. Tom, do you understand what this means? If their estimate is accurate, this Earth Defense Fleet was already traveling at maximum speed toward our system before we sent our confirmation message. They committed to military action based solely on our initial distress call? That is impossible, Tom replied. No civilization makes that kind of decision without extensive debate, risk assessment, and political approval. Military deployments require authorization from governing bodies, strategic planning, and resource allocation. You cannot just decide to help strangers and launch a fleet within hours. The tactical display updated again, showing the Dominion scouts had begun accelerating toward the inner system. Their biomechanical ships looked like enormous insects with metallic carapaces and weapon pods that pulsed with organic energy. Each vessel was the size of a small city, and their combined firepower could sterilize entire worlds. Sir, the tactical officer called out, the Dominion scouts are transmitting on all frequencies. It appears to be a standard ultimatum message. The main screen activated, showing the fearsome appearance of Supreme Commander Vorth. His biomechanical armor made him look more machine than organic being, and his voice carried the cold certainty of someone who had never known defeat. Turvan Republic, you have been marked for absorption into the Dominion Empire. Your resistance is noted but irrelevant. Surrender your remaining population for processing, and your deaths will be swift. Continue your futile evacuation attempts, and we will ensure your suffering lasts for generations. You have 1 hour to comply. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Everyone present knew that compliance meant slavery for some and death for most. The Dominion did not negotiate or show mercy to those who opposed. Send another message to Earth, Tom ordered. Tell them we have 1 hour before the ultimatum expires, and ask them if they truly intend to engage a force that has conquered half the galaxy. The response came back almost immediately. Turvan Command, we do not negotiate with those who prey on innocent beings. Maintain your evacuation procedures. Earth Defense Fleet will arrive shortly. The situation is under control. Ross out. Dr. Hayes stared at the message and tried to understand what kind of civilization would make such a commitment to complete strangers. Tom, either we have encountered the most militaristic species in galactic history, or we have found someone who considers the protection of innocent life to be worth any risk. Outside, the evacuation ships continued their desperate flight toward the outer system, carrying millions of Turvans away from their ancestral home. Behind them, Dominion scouts spread through the system like a disease, preparing the way for the main fleet that would complete the destruction of everything the Turvan Republic had built over centuries, somewhere in the darkness of space. An unknown fleet was racing toward a battle that would determine whether compassion had any place in a galaxy increasingly dominated by those who viewed mercy as weakness. The Turvans could only wait and hope that their faith in strangers would prove to be more than just the desperate fantasy of a dying civilization. The space around Terra Prime suddenly erupted with light as dozens of unknown ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Tom watched from the command center as sensors struggled to process what they were detecting. The Earth Defense Fleet had arrived exactly when Admiral Ross promised, but nothing could have prepared the Turvans for what they witnessed. The flagship appeared first, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Dominion bioships. Its hull was dark gray metal covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays that spoke of pure military design. Behind it came wave after wave of smaller ships, sleek destroyers with angular hulls, carriers that immediately began launching fighter craft, and cruisers bristling with weapon systems the Turvan computers could not identify. How many ships are we detecting? Dr. Hayes asked the tactical officer, who was staring at his screens in disbelief. Computer shows 437 vessels of various classes, he replied. But that cannot be accurate. No single civilization maintains fleets of that size anymore. The logistics alone would bankrupt most galactic governments. Captain Maria Torres led the first wave of human fighters toward the Dominion scouts, and what happened next defied every assumption the Turvans had about space. Combat. Instead of the careful, methodical approach used by most galactic militaries, the human pilots attacked with controlled aggression that overwhelmed their targets through sheer audacity. The human fighters moved in three-dimensional formations that constantly shifted and adapted to enemy responses. They fired weapons that accelerated physical projectiles to incredible speeds rather than using energy beams, and their missiles seemed to think for themselves as they adjusted course to counter-Dominion evasive maneuvers. Their tactics are completely different from anything in our military databases, Dr. Hayes observed as she watched the battle unfold. They are not trying to minimize casualties or preserve their ships. They are fighting as if the only acceptable outcome is the complete destruction of their enemies. 3 Dominion bioships attempted to break away from the engagement and head toward the refugee fleet, but Lieutenant Ben Park, commanding a human destroyer, intercepted them with maneuvers. That should have been impossible for a ship that size. His vessel accelerated directly toward the bioships and opened fire with weapons that tore through their organic armor like it was made of paper. Turvan Command, this is Lieutenant Park, came the transmission from the destroyer. Your refugee ships are safe. We have established a protective perimeter around your evacuation fleet. Any Dominion vessel that approaches will be destroyed. Tom activated the communication array to respond. Lieutenant Park, we cannot thank you enough for your assistance. However, our sensors show the main Dominion fleet approaching rapidly. You may want to consider withdrawing your forces before they arrive. The response carried a tone that Tom found both reassuring and terrifying. Negative, Turvan Command. Earth Defense Fleet does not withdraw when innocent lives are at stake. We knew the size of the Dominion force when we accepted this mission. The situation is under control. Admiral Ross appeared on the main communication screen, and the Turvans got their first look at the human leader. He appeared middle-aged by most species standards, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to have seen more conflict than any being should endure. His uniform was practical rather than ceremonial, and he spoke with the calm authority of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions. Turvan Republic Command, I am Admiral Ross. My fleet is engaging Dominion advance forces as we speak. I need you to maintain your evacuation procedures and keep all civilian vessels clear of the combat zone. We will establish a defensive perimeter around your refugee fleet and prevent any enemy vessels from reaching your people. Admiral Ross, Tom replied, our long-range sensors show over 2,000 Dominion bioships approaching. Are you certain? Your fleet can handle those numbers? Ross smiled grimly before responding. Son, Earth has been preparing for this kind of fight for longer than you might imagine. The Dominion Empire is about to learn that humanity does not negotiate with those who prey on innocent beings. We will either stop them here or we will die trying. There is no middle ground. The main Dominion fleet began arriving at the edge of the system, and the scale of Supreme Commander Vorth's forces became clear. His bioships stretched across space like a living plague, each vessel pulsing with organic energy and bristling with weapons designed to crack planetary crusts. The combined firepower represented enough destructive capability to sterilize entire star systems. Human fleet, this is Supreme Commander Vorth, came the transmission from the Dominion flagship. You have interfered in Dominion operations and will be destroyed for your foolishness. Withdraw immediately or share the fate of those you seek to protect, Admiral Ross replied without hesitation. Supreme Commander Vorth, this is Admiral Ross of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have committed acts of genocide against innocent civilizations and will answer for your crimes. Surrender immediately or face the consequences of your actions. This is your only warning. Vorth's response was to order an immediate attack by his entire fleet. The Dominion bioships surged forward in a massive wave that should have overwhelmed any opposing force through sheer numbers. What they encountered instead was a human fleet that had been designed specifically for this kind of total warfare. The Earth Defense Fleet moved with precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. Their formations created overlapping fields of fire that caught Dominion ships in crossfires from multiple directions. Their weapon systems fired continuously, maintaining rates of fire that overwhelmed Dominion defenses through sustained bombardment. Rather than single devastating strikes, Captain Torres led her fighter squadrons in attacks that targeted the bioship's organic components, exploiting weaknesses that the Dominion had never encountered before. Lieutenant Park coordinated destroyer formations that created corridors of destruction through enemy formations, fragmenting the Dominion fleet into smaller groups that could be eliminated more easily. Tom, Dr. Hayes said as she monitored the battle, I am detecting something unusual about human weapon signatures. The energy patterns suggest they have been developing military technology specifically for large-scale interstellar warfare. This is not a defensive fleet protecting their own territory. This is an offensive force designed to project power across galactic distances. The implications were staggering. Most civilizations maintained small fleets for system defense and relied on diplomacy to resolve conflicts. The Earth Defense Fleet represented a military philosophy that most galactic species had abandoned centuries ago, the willingness to use overwhelming force to protect others regardless of the cost. As the battle intensified, it became clear that humanity had not just responded to the Turvan distress call. They had declared war on the Dominion Empire itself, and they possessed both the capability and determination to wage that war until one side or the other faced complete annihilation. The Turvans were witnessing the arrival of a species that viewed the protection of innocent life as a sacred duty worth any sacrifice. Supreme Commander Vorth had conquered 47 star systems and never encountered resistance like this. His biomechanical flagship shuddered under impacts from human weapons that seemed to ignore his organic armor, and his tactical displays showed Dominion ships disappearing at an alarming rate. The humans fought with a combination of technical superiority and absolute determination that defied his understanding of galactic warfare. "Status report," Vorth demanded from his bridge. "Crew, most of whom were biomechanical hybrids created by Dominion Science. Their organic components allowed them to interface directly with the ship's systems, while their mechanical parts eliminated weakness and emotion. We have lost 347 vessels," reported his tactical coordinator. "Human. Weapons penetrate our bioarmor more effectively than any technology we have encountered. Their fighters coordinate attacks that overwhelm individual ship defenses, and their larger vessels maintain firing rates that exceed our regeneration capabilities." Vorth studied the tactical display showing the battle's progression. The human fleet moved in patterns that suggested they had fought similar engagements before, exploiting Dominion weaknesses with precision that could only come from extensive combat experience. Their formations adapted constantly to counter Dominion tactics, and their weapons seemed specifically designed to counter biomechanical technology. Admiral Ross coordinated the human assault from the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by officers, who carried out his orders with military efficiency that impressed even the watching Turvans. Captain Torres reported successful strikes on Dominion bioships while Lieutenant Park's destroyers maintained pressure on enemy formations trying to break through to the refugee fleet. "Admiral," called Commander Lisa Webb from the cruiser section of the fleet, "Dominion forces are attempting to establish a bombardment position near the fourth planet. If they succeed, they can launch attacks on the evacuation route while maintaining distance from our main force." Ross examined the tactical situation and made his decision without hesitation. "All available ships converge on that position. We cannot allow them to threaten the refugee fleet. Use any means necessary to prevent their bombardment." The human response was immediate and devastating. Destroyers accelerated beyond safe limits to intercept the Dominion maneuver, while fighters launched from carriers that moved dangerously close to enemy positions. The coordination required split-second timing and absolute trust between ship commanders who had trained together for scenarios exactly like this one. Dr. Hayes monitored the battle from the Turvan Command Center and noticed something that both impressed and terrified her. "Tom, the humans are taking casualties, but they are not retreating or modifying their tactics to preserve their forces. Every time a human ship is destroyed, the remaining vessels become more aggressive rather than more cautious." "What do you mean?" Tom asked, watching his screen show another Dominion bioship succumbing to concentrated human fire. "Most galactic militaries calculate acceptable loss ratios and withdraw when casualties exceed predetermined limits, Dr. Hayes explained. The humans appear to be operating under different parameters entirely. They seem willing to sacrifice their entire fleet if necessary to protect the refugee ships." This philosophy became evident when 3 Dominion bioships broke through the human defensive line and headed directly toward the packed evacuation vessels. Commander Webb positioned her cruiser between the enemy ships and the refugees, knowing her single vessel could not survive against 3 larger opponents. "All refugee ships, continue your evacuation course," Webb transmitted. "Earth Defense Fleet will not allow you to be harmed. Maintain current heading and do not deviate for any reason." Her cruiser engaged all 3 bioships simultaneously, absorbing devastating damage while her weapon systems continued firing until the last possible moment. When her ship's power core reached critical levels, Webb made a decision that defined human military philosophy. "This is Commander Webb to all Earth Defense Fleet vessels," she transmitted as her ship lost structural integrity. "Enemy vessels. Our penetrating defensive perimeter. Engaging with collision protocol. Tell my family I kept my oath." Webb deliberately rammed her crippled cruiser into the lead Dominion bioship, and the resulting explosion destroyed both vessels while crippling the other 2 enemy ships. Lieutenant Park's destroyers arrived moments later to finish off the damaged bioships, ensuring the refugee fleet remained protected. "Did she just sacrifice her entire ship and crew to protect our people?" Tom asked in disbelief. "That appears to be standard human military doctrine," Dr. Hayes replied. They view the protection of innocent life as more important than their own survival? Supreme Commander Vorth watched the destruction of his breakthrough force and realized he was facing an enemy unlike any he had encountered. The humans did not fight for territory or resources or political advantage. They fought as if the survival of complete strangers was worth more than their own lives. All bioships implement Dispersal Pattern 7, Vorth ordered. Force them to spread their defenses across multiple targets. Their willingness to sacrifice themselves can be turned into a weakness if we present them with more threats than they can counter. The Dominion fleet scattered across the system, forcing Admiral Ross to divide his forces to protect all the potential targets. Human ships raced to intercept multiple Dominion groups, stretching their defensive capabilities to the breaking point. Captain Torres led her fighter squadrons against the largest group of bioships, while her pilots coordinated attacks that had been practiced in countless training exercises. "All fighter wings, remember your training," she transmitted. "We stop them here or innocent people die. That is not acceptable." Her fighters swarmed over the bioships like angry insects, exploiting weak points in organic armor while avoiding the weapon systems that had destroyed so many other galactic fleets. The human pilots flew with precision that came from years of preparation for exactly this kind of engagement. Lieutenant Park's destroyers engaged another Dominion group near the system's edge. Using their speed and maneuverability to attack from angles the bioships could not effectively counter. "Target their organic components," Park ordered his fleet. "Their own mechanical systems cannot regenerate faster than we can damage them." Vorth realized his dispersal tactic was failing as human forces systematically destroyed each Dominion group. Despite being outnumbered, the humans fought with tactical coordination that suggested they had been preparing for large-scale interstellar warfare for decades, possibly centuries. "How is this possible?" demanded his tactical coordinator. "No single civilization maintains this level of military capability without conquering their neighbors or being destroyed by them. Unless," Vorth replied with growing concern, "they developed this capability specifically to fight enemies like us." The Supreme Commander activated his personal communication array and sent a priority transmission toward Dominion space. "Dominion High Command, this is Vorth. Human civilization represents a significant threat to our expansion. Recommend immediate reassessment of operational parameters regarding Earth Defense Fleet capabilities. They are not standard galactic opposition." As his remaining bioships continued to fall under human assault, Vorth faced the possibility that the Dominion Empire had finally encountered a species capable of stopping their conquest of the galaxy. The humans did not negotiate, did not retreat, and did not accept the survival of some at the cost of others. They fought as if evil itself could be defeated through sufficient application of righteous force. The tide of battle was turning, and for the first time in his career, Supreme Commander Vorth began to consider the possibility of defeat. 3 weeks after the battle, Ambassador Lyra walked through the rebuilt sections of Terva Prime and marveled at what had become possible. The human construction teams worked alongside Tervan engineers to restore damaged infrastructure, but they also installed defensive systems that would have been considered impossible before Earth's arrival. The planet that had once been defenseless now bristled with shield generators and weapon platforms that could repel entire fleets. Admiral Ross toured the refugee processing centers where millions of displaced Tervans were being relocated to temporary housing. The human medical teams had brought technologies that healed radiation damage in hours rather than months, and their engineers had designed shelter systems that could house entire cities while permanent structures were rebuilt. "Admiral," Lyra said as she approached the weathered human leader, "I have been trying to understand why your people responded so quickly to our distress call. Most civilizations require months of debate and political approval before committing to military action, especially for strangers they have never met." Ross paused in his inspection of a medical facility where human and Tervan doctors worked together to treat the last of the wounded refugees. "Ambassador, where I come from, when someone calls for help, you answer. It does not matter if you know them or not. It does not matter if helping them might cost you everything. You answer the call because that is what decent people do. But the risk, Lyra pressed. Your fleet could have been destroyed. Your people could have faced retaliation from the Dominion Empire. How do you justify such decisions to your government? Our government exists to serve the people, Ross replied. And our people believe that freedom and justice are worth any sacrifice. When the Dominion Empire commits genocide against innocent beings, stopping them becomes everyone's responsibility. Captain Torres approached with her latest report on the defensive training programs she had established for surviving Turvan military personnel. Admiral, we have 47 Turvan pilots qualified on basic fighter operations, and their tactical officers are adapting well to our defensive coordination protocols. Within 6 months, they should be capable of defending their own system against conventional threats. What about unconventional threats? Lyra asked, thinking about the biomechanical horrors they had faced. That is why we are leaving defensive platforms and early warning systems, Torres replied. If the Dominion or anyone like them approaches Turvan space again, Earth Defense Fleet will know about it within hours. Lieutenant Park joined the conversation, carrying data tablets filled with technical specifications. We have also established communication relays that will allow instant contact with Earth Command. Any Turvan distress signal will be answered immediately by the nearest human fleet. Dr. Hayes studied the technical data that human engineers had shared with Turvan scientists. The technologies were decades ahead of anything in their databases, but the humans had provided them freely along with training programs to help Turvan technicians understand and maintain the new systems. This level of technological sharing is unprecedented, she told Tom as they reviewed the data. Most galactic civilizations guard their military secrets carefully. The humans have given us everything we need to defend ourselves, and they ask for nothing in return? Tom activated the communication array that now connected Terva Prime to a galaxy-wide network of civilizations that had begun reaching out to Earth. The political implications are staggering. Word of our rescue has spread throughout the galaxy. Other species are requesting Earth's assistance with their own problems. The main display showed incoming messages from dozens of different civilizations. Some faced Dominion invasion, others dealt with pirates or territorial disputes, and a few simply wanted to establish diplomatic relations with the species that had proven capable of standing against galactic-scale threats. How is Earth responding to these requests? Lyra asked. According to Admiral Ross, they are establishing rapid response fleets throughout their territory, Tom replied. Any civilization that calls for help will receive immediate assistance, regardless of their size, location, or ability to reciprocate. Admiral Ross returned to the command center and addressed the assembled Turvan officials. The Earth Defense Fleet will be departing tomorrow, but we are leaving behind sufficient personnel and equipment to ensure your security. Captain Torres will remain as our liaison, and Lieutenant Park will oversee the completion of your defensive installations. What about the Dominion Empire? Dr. Hayes asked. Supreme Commander Vorth escaped with part of his fleet. Surely they will attempt retaliation? Ross smiled grimly. The Dominion Empire now knows that Earth exists and will respond to any act of genocide in this galaxy. Their expansion has stopped completely, and our intelligence suggests they are withdrawing from several contested systems. They learned a valuable lesson here. Evil may be powerful, but it is not invincible. Lyra activated the main communication screen to address the assembled crowd of Turvan refugees and human personnel. 3 weeks ago, we faced extinction and believed no one would answer our call for help. Today, we stand in a galaxy where innocent life is protected by those who value justice above their own safety. The crowd applauded, but Ross raised his hand for silence. Ambassador, we did not save your people to earn gratitude or recognition. We saved them because it was the right thing to do. Tomorrow, somewhere else in this galaxy, someone might need our help. When they call, we will answer. But why? Asked a young Turvan child who had lost her family in the Dominion attacks. Why do you help people you do not know? Ross knelt down to speak with the child directly. Because everyone deserves to be safe. Everyone deserves to have someone who will stand up for them when bad people try to hurt them. That is what my people believe, and that is what we will always do. Tom transmitted a final message to the Galactic Communication Network, broadcasting on all known frequencies. This is Terva Prime to all civilizations within range. The Earth Defense Fleet has proven that genocide and oppression can be stopped by those willing to fight for justice. Humanity offers protection to any innocent beings threatened by those who would destroy them. If you need help, call Earth. They will answer. The message was picked up and retransmitted by hundreds of civilizations throughout the galaxy. Within hours, it had spread to every inhabited system, carrying with it the promise that somewhere in the darkness of space, a species existed that valued the lives of strangers enough to risk everything to protect them. Dr. Hayes completed her analysis of the human fleet's capabilities and shared her conclusions with the gathered officials. Based on my observations, Earth has been preparing for large-scale galactic warfare for centuries. Their military doctrine, weapon systems, and tactical coordination suggest they anticipated encountering threats like the Dominion Empire long before we made contact. What does that mean for the galaxy? Lyra asked. It means, Dr. Hayes replied, that humanity developed their civilization around the principle that someone must be ready to protect innocent life, even if that protection requires tremendous sacrifice. They built their entire society to serve as guardians for those who cannot defend themselves. The Dominion survivors who had escaped the battle brought word of Earth's capabilities back to their empire. Within days, Dominion expansion ceased completely as their leadership reassessed the strategic situation. The species that had conquered half the galaxy now faced an opponent that viewed their very existence as an intolerable threat to innocent life. Other aggressive civilizations throughout the galaxy began reconsidering their own expansion plans. The Vorthan Syndicate abandoned their invasion of the Kepler colonies. The Razor Clan ceased their raids on merchant shipping lanes. Word spread that humanity would respond to any act of aggression against innocent beings, and their response would be swift, overwhelming, and final. Captain Torres established training academies on 12 different worlds, teaching defensive tactics to any civilization that requested assistance. Her instructors emphasized that the goal was not conquest or domination, but the protection of innocent life through strength and determination. Lieutenant Park oversaw the installation of early warning networks that connected hundreds of star systems to Earth's rapid response grid. Any distress signal would trigger an immediate military response, ensuring that no civilization would face extinction alone. The galaxy had changed fundamentally. Where once aggressive empires expanded through fear and overwhelming force, they now faced the certainty that their actions would bring retaliation from a species that considered the protection of others to be their sacred duty. Ambassador Lyra stood in her restored office and looked out at the stars where human patrol ships maintained constant vigilance. Tom, do you think we will see them again? Without question, Tom replied. Admiral Ross made it clear that Earth considers the Turvan Republic to be under their permanent protection. More importantly, they have established humanity as the galaxy's guardians. Anyone who threatens innocent life will face the same response we witnessed here. The final human transport ship prepared to depart Terva Prime, carrying with it the wounded and those scheduled for rotation back to Earth. Admiral Ross transmitted a final message to the Turvan government. Turvan Republic, this is Admiral Ross. Your people are safe, your world is secure, and your future is your own to determine. Remember that freedom requires vigilance and justice demands courage. If you ever need assistance, Earth will answer. The universe is a dangerous place, but no one faces that danger alone anymore. Ross out. As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, the Turvans were left with more than just their lives and freedom. They had witnessed the emergence of a galactic power that measured its strength not by the worlds it conquered, but by the innocence it protected. The age of unchecked galactic predators was ending, replaced by an era where those who preyed on the weak would face the righteous fury of those who had dedicated their entire civilization to ensuring that justice prevailed. The message that had begun as a desperate plea from a dying people had become a declaration that echoed throughout the galaxy. If you need help, call Earth, and they will answer. For the first time in galactic history, that promise carried the absolute certainty that it would be kept regardless of the cost.